in that format, I couldn't entertain to be free of it. The best I could do was like to sort of, like even in some spiritual terms, they'll talk about killing it, the ego, or wrestling it into submission. Yeah, but the head can't really entertain being free of it if it's identified as it. It's an impossible leap for the logic of the self-centeredness. Yeah, and that's the dominant thought system. If there's that feeling of being a self, that's the product of that thought system and what it reinforces. Yeah, so that thought system can't entertain being free of itself. Yeah, so that's why therapy becomes valuable and all these other ways to try to get relief from the seeming problem. Yeah, but all the relief gets eaten by the problem. I remember I did this thing. I had digestion problems for a long time in the gut. So I started buying the most expensive probiotics at Whole Foods. And I drank it religiously because some people told me, well, just put some beneficial flora in there and then your stomach won't be so acidy and maybe you'll be able to eat other things than just, rice and, gruel and stuff. And so I did it religiously. Spent tons of money putting it in there. Then I didn't feel much difference, so I sent my shit to a place where they test stools. Yeah, it's called Smoky Mountain Labs down in West Virginia, somewhere on the East Coast. It was famous for it. So I sent it there, and they give you a very comprehensive test. They check everything out. You can check boxes that you'll pay for, and then they'll do all those things, parasites, everything like that. So I checked all these boxes. I wanted a thorough one. I wanted to get down to the root of this thing. And the results came back, and there was absolutely no sign of any beneficial flora in my stomach, in my digestion. Not one bit. Zero. There's none. Now I've been putting it in every day, like religiously, and with the modality I'm in, thinking that, hoping for the best, I'm doing what I should be doing. You don't have beneficial flora, put some in there, and 8 billions of them at once, I mean, how much more can I put in? Like 50 billion is just poured it in. And then when they tested, I had none in there. Because the dilemma was, there was something in there already that I wasn't aware of. You want to maybe call it Candida, or it could be any other bug. But there were 2 bacteria that were in there, and actually, my solution was their food. They were eating the beneficial flora. So, in my unilluminated way of seeing things, because I had no idea what the real dynamic was, so I was just doing the best I could with the information I had. It's sort of like being in a room and the lights were turned off. All your moves would be like speculation. Actually, they would come from the past in your head. And you would try to remember where the bathroom was and the door was. Because you have no light. You can't see. So you're basing things on speculation. Yeah? And then maybe someone sells maps to the bathroom. And okay, I'll buy that map, $5 for the map. And the guy's authenticity is he once was here when it was daylight and he saw where the bathroom was, and he thinks he remembers where it is and stuff like that. And you would do all these activities, yeah, taking the darkness to be the real situation, instead of and never entertaining that, hey, just find the light switch. If the light switch went on, I wouldn't need a map to get to the bathroom. I could see the door, and I wouldn't need knee pads to protect my knees from hitting chairs in the dark, because I could see the chair. I could navigate and everything like that, yeah? So here I was in the dark. I didn't know what was going on. And what I did, seeming what was being done, was actually the food for what I was attempting to kill, And hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars in, billions and billions of beneficial, bacteria that got every one of them got eaten by the thing, and the thing was getting bigger and bigger. By me providing a solution, the problem would get bigger and bigger. So, in a sense, it's really important to know in a way, what the dynamic is. Because the solutions that may seem viable will be totally different based on the dynamic that's in place. Yeah? So if there is a false identification that is the center of a system that seems to just be going off the tracks, yeah? Getting so obsessed over, like, hems of pants and, what did that girl mean by saying hello to me, and, going over it for hour after hour, representing it, and what could it possibly mean? Maybe she just said hello, No, it's much more deeper meaning must be in there. And going over all this stuff, maybe all that is rooted in one dynamic that we're not entertaining. Yeah? We're entertaining, maybe I'm obsessed with myself, but you may not be entertaining what you think you're obsessed with is what thinks it's obsessed is the idea of self. Not what it's obsessed with, but the feeling of being obsessed with something is the product of the selfing. Yeah, the obsession with self is a secondary thing. Yeah, that's its activity, but the real thing is you feel like you're being imposed upon by these thoughts that you'd rather not have. And there's a real feeling, there's a you there that's being imposed upon. That's the product of the selfing, yeah? And so if you can hear a message that gives you an idea that maybe it's not true, maybe that's not a solid, long-lasting, independent, separate entity, maybe there is no, what it's referring to is, it's made by the referring, yeah? There's no it that it's referring to, but the referring to it makes the sense of being the it. Yeah, maybe, just maybe, yeah? If that's the case, when you take that idea out, then you see the referring about it, but it doesn't produce the sense of the it that it's referring about. Yeah? Yeah. So, I remember with this situation with me, I remember one time, I listened to some of these teachers, read their books and everything, and I had an understanding. I did. I had a certain thing, and it was actually providing me a little traveling night. It also provided me with excuses in relationships when people would say, Paul, that was really a bad thing you did. I said, there is no Paul. And my girlfriend at the time would say, fuck you, No, there's no me to be fucked. And this is, it's all this bullshit. It would be using it for its own advantage, yes? But how I knew it was as a thing. Yeah? I knew, when I heard this message, I knew it as a thing, which made it a thing. Yeah? You know what I mean? I knew it as a thing, so it became conceptual. Yeah? And the concept was taken to be what it is, because this concept has been taken to be what I am. Yeah? And one time, when I was hearing this message, there was one time, and it started to happen more and more often, when I heard the message, yes, I knew it like you would know a thing, but it wasn't a thing I knew. That was what was cool, yeah? I knew it like you would know a thing, Like, that's how this mind knows things. It knows it as a thing. That's the hit of, I know it, yeah? You can't do that with no thingness. You can't make it a thing to know it. Yeah? Something's lost in the translation, big time. But there was one moment when my head that had this system of thingness, yeah, making things into things and making into things, let's say. It got the message like it was a thing, but no thing. Yeah? It got it as, in other words, it felt like I got it, but it wasn't a thing that it was. Yeah? It was, in other words, my head that's always been conditioned to see nouns and things, saw it as a verb, had the sense of it, and I realized it's a verb. Yeah? It's never been a noun. And yet the way I was looking at it, I was constantly trying to make it a noun, but it's a verb. And that's it. If you want it, what it is to me is, it is a verb in a sense, yeah? In other words, the same way I knew things as things, there was a moment when my head snapped out of it and knew it as a no thing. Yeah? And then it started to translate into my living. Yeah? Then it started to actually be applicable like an all-terrain vehicle. Yeah? And my head, instead of being the mathematics of this head, instead of being based on the primary number 1, shifted to 0. Yeah? Shifted to 0. And then all the inconsistencies and confusion that all my equations seem to produce all started to make sense when the 1, the primary number me, was turned into a 0. Yeah? And then my math became about nothing instead of things. Yeah? So when the things were noted, what was valued was the no-thingness of them. So like they say, form is emptiness is form. You would see the emptiness as the form. You would see the no-thingness. You would hold it as no-thingness while you were perceiving it as thing. Yeah? So the mathematical scheme up here switched from 1 to 0. And then it started to make sense in a much deeper way. Not sense up here that has to be reasoned and rationalized and logically, or blamed or all this, but a deeper, like resonating in here. Resonating, whatever it is. A deeper, yeah? Like an unspoken yes. And so the knowledge became totally different when 0 was the main number instead of 1. And since then, that's what's been the dominant mathematics with that. And so I get the feeling like you get when you see a thing, in seeing a thing, but as no thing. Yeah? The same feeling when I would get a thing, I have that sense, I get it, but without it being an it. Yeah? And so it's not an acquisition or achievement, but it's a way of traveling. You're freeing, so to speak. Yeah? There's no freedom. You don't get freedom, but there's a living freeing, a free type of living. You're traveling quite light. Yeah? I think that's really cool. Because I knew it. I was presented this message many times. I read some people, and it's like when I had this dream when I was in the hospital. I got hit by a car, and I was in the hospital for a long time. And I went into like these hallucinatory states, like super dream states. And I see this old guru of mine a lot in these dream states. So this one time I could fly too. I learned that I could fly, and I learned I could fly through people. And so every dream I had these same qualities. I could always fly, and I could fly through people. Yeah. And so this one dream, I flew to. In this dream, he was having a meeting with people who had kids, because he had kids. And I flew down there, and I entered the auditorium, and I was flying around, the circumference, and people were flipping out a little bit, because I was flying around. And I'd be flying towards people, and I'd go, I can fly right through you, and they go, oh, and I'd fly right through them. And I made a couple of passes, and I landed on the die that he was sitting on. And I walked, I looked at him, and I came up to him, and I looked at him like what's it? What's up? What's the truth? Whatever. And he had a little curly lip, and he smiled, and he says, it's just too simple for you ever to get, bro. And at that moment, I felt that every way I know was incapable of embracing that. Every kind of, like, claw, or, every tool, every way I understand or grasp something, no. And then I felt like the sorrow of 1,000 years, I felt it to be so true that I can never grasp this thing. Never. And it just hit me like a fucking ton of bricks. And then I wanted to go back. And they gave me a ticket at this dream. And when I woke up on the hospital bed, I was looking for the ticket. And I had the nurses looking for a ticket. There was no ticket. I was really fucking bummed out. So I flew back down there again, and this time they gave me money. And I woke up again in the hospital bed, as if I came from a journey, and I was looking for the money. I had the nurses, and there was no money. And I went down there one more time, and then he was there, and people from the auditorium were holding me. And while they were holding me, the nurses were pulling me up from my elbows, and I said yes to the hospital. And there I was, and at that point, it never went anywhere again. The rest of the time I was there. Yeah, it was trippy. But the thing is, the feeling that I got when I looked at him, and I really, as much as you can be beseeching, imploring some info, and he just basically, it was telepathically, he didn't say anything, but, there's no way you're ever going to get it. And that was like a crushing blow, but that's what it's like. It's trying to apply a logic that can't fit to that equation. Yeah, it's all gobbledygook. So the mind makes it into something. So it always, every time the mind is presented with nothing, it makes it into something. It conceptualizes it. It turns a pathless invitation into a path. Yeah, it makes something. It adjusts it. It distorts it. So because that way it can know it. Yeah. It can know it, and it has a real sense of security when it knows something. But that knowing doesn't translate. It's not translating, yeah? I mean, I had to admit, these people I saw this thing, they've probably logged thousands of nights at these types of meetings. Now, maybe they enjoy it, yeah? But I could see in some of their faces, it's more like a job. They're wanting to get something. They're wanting to get something, but what's being applied to that is the problem, in a way. It's the way the schematic of our system can't do it. It's built to see things. It's built to know things. It's built to conceptualize everything and then think that's what that thing is. Yeah? It gives name and form. And you can't give name and form to no thing. So it's not we're missing what's seeing, it's there's too much looking. Yeah? The way there's a looking, that incessant looking causes the seeing to go unnoticed. Yeah? That looking, if you want to call it self-centeredness, that's the inherent blindness to the seeing, and then there's so many offshoots to try to make that form of blindness be a better way of looking. But no matter how many advanced ways of looking there are, it's still a blindness, in a way, to the seeing. Because it's been formatted a little differently. It's actually seeing turned into a sense of looking that takes a you to be doing it, yeah? And while that's applicable, and especially when it's applied to the idea of no thingness, it's obviously going to be a failed little engagement, yeah? Because it will constantly want to make it a thing, and no thing won't budge. Yeah? Literally, it won't budge. It's not going to comply with your wish. Yeah. And I'm obviously talking like no thing as a thing now, because that's the way this language is used. You see, you can see it even when you're attempting to point at. The way you point at it is the exact system you're saying is what can't embrace it. Yeah? So it's like it's got an inherent frustration in it, yeah? Which is cool because it's an exhausted system. When the system gets exhausted, there's the possibility of a new system taking over. Yeah. Because look at you, look at us. How much aren't we like processing life here as through experiences and things? And how good of processors are we? We produce a lot of pollution and debris, don't we? And so what the head does in some kind of sympathy is just try to narrow the stimuli. So let's just take this amount and make it into a story and project it as what's really happening. Let's see if we can manage. We can't even manage that, yeah? And it's not that we can't manage it, that's just not managerial quality, that system. Yeah? It's like too archaic, it's too right angles. It's too crude. Yeah. It doesn't have the ability to be flexible and to be open. It's like a wooden frame that never gives. Yeah. No matter how big the painting wants to explode through it, the frame never gives. Yeah. So every painting is defined by the frame. Nothingness is cool because it's instead of this frame of I know, it's a much like fluid frame called finding out, yeah. Which allows a lot of entertaining. Yeah? You don't know, so that keeps you very alert, and then you find out. And then what you find out, entertain. Check it out. Let your mind embrace it in a very spacious way. Just entertain it. Walk around. And then see what downloads tell you what. And then you'll become informed in a way. Yeah? But not, and there's a value in everything, but there's a point where it's nice to let go of all the outside auxiliary and just to allow it to be informed, Just find out. Find out in your own gut. It's like the greatest convincer. Yeah. If you just feel it. And if there's a willingness to just tell the truth, in your observation of how things go, you'll see there's an incredible growth in traveling lighter. Yeah? It's like a flower that thought this was its limit, and then it just keeps going like that, finding out it can spread pretty wide. And of course, the larger the surface, more the light. Yeah? This, how much light can get in, or out, really. This, I really like this invitation. Why? Because it worked. Everything else was, I felt like the word solution had a tinny definition because it never seemed to solve anything. Yeah, the problem looked like it was really robust, as they say. Yeah, but the solutions seemed to be fucking pretty flimsy. Constantly having to be vigilant and be watchful and follow every breath. Shit, the problem doesn't seem to do that. It just fucking goes off. You know what I mean? It's like, jeez. It doesn't have to exercise. It's fucking, just going off. So, I would say that I would hope, in a sense, that the same sort of qualities of the naturalness in this artificial place of the problem could be found out about actually the activity of the solution, in a sense. Yeah? It has the same naturalness or the same sort of, it doesn't need to be like primed, it's just going anyway. Yeah? All these messages and invitations are just a little bit of a catalyst to ignite or to trigger a chemical, let's say, combustion. All the chemical, all the chemistry, all the nothingness is there. It just may need a little message or an invitation, yeah? to sort of catalyze it, to like a primer to get it rolling. But then it doesn't have to be kick-started every fucking second. It's got a life of its own. Yeah. Once, it may seem like it's not going anywhere right now. I may not possibly be that. Watch what. You don't have to keep up. Kickstart. You ever do it with a bike, motorcycle? It doesn't, whatever you call it. Can't start. There's too much gas. Yeah. Or if your car's dead and you don't pour a gallon or 2 gallons of gas in the carburetor, you put a couple of drops, yeah, and then it ignites, yeah, because it's all there. The potential of combustibility is there. It doesn't need to be drenched with fuel. It just needs a little bit of a primer. It kicks right over, and now it starts driving. Yeah, that to me is what the message is, or the invitation. It's like a subtle little concise brief. And then it triggers, hopefully, something. You may feel like it resonates something. And that resonation is almost like the starting of the no engine, And your sense of presence. And then drive. You know what I mean? That's the point. The point isn't to put a gallon of gas in the carburetor. It's to drive when the car starts, I would say. Eh? That's what I came up with in Toronto. I'll probably be a hypocrite and have an intensive weekend again. But, message means a small, invitation is not a huge, 40-page thing. It's an invitation. It's exactly the sense I have of it. It's like a little catalyst or a little bit of a chemical starter put into the combustible chemistry that's not being able to commingle because of the identification as a long-lasting, independent, separate entity. Yeah? All the chemistry's there, but it's dormant. You just trigger it, and then it kicks on, and there you go. Check it out. And then come here, and we enjoy each other, and you can hear a message and stuff. And then hopefully, you may not get the big banana you're looking for, enlightenment, but hey, fuck it. You would, what's his name? Ramesh used to say, he was in a spiritual group. He says, well, which one would you take? If I offered you $1 million or enlightenment, which one would you take? So all the spiritual people said, enlightenment. He says, I'd take the $1 million because at least I'd be there to enjoy it. Yeah? You know what I mean? Yeah. This is, you don't even know what enlightenment would look like. You would have ideas, that's why you wouldn't know. Yeah? Isn't it just the living of what? Today, Monday. That's its infinity, really, for us here. Yeah. And what else? Where else do you need to travel light in a place where you can travel heavy? Do you think light needs to travel light? Do you think light's just like when you were a kid? Were you thinking about improving yourself? Really? Were you thinking about meditation and spiritual seeking? No, you had not a clue. And yet they're probably the brightest beacons you see during a day. It's sort of like, crazy. And I have nothing against spirituality in a sense, but it's like beating a dead horse if it goes on over and over and over again. Yes? It's not going to be pounded into you. It's like, entertain it. See what happens. You've heard it, yes. You've heard it. Deb's heard it. These guys have heard it. And then you guys have heard it. You've heard it from a very good source. What's his name? Adyashanti. No, I know his name. It's a very good source. It's been triggered already. Yeah? You guys do service to me from the outside. You look happy as hell in a way. Yeah? Do we need more? Does it have to be like, well, we're awake? Who the fuck is that? What's that? It's a verb. Yeah? It's a verb. No one becomes awake. That would be a noun once again. Taking the role of the verb. There's no way. I don't believe it works that way. Maybe something stabilized so they think it's them, or at least their seat assignment is they are an awake person. But it would be interesting to be in one's head who is supposedly awake and see how they go through the day. I'm sure they're probably getting pissed off at traffic and shit like that. And fucking, I'll follow them in the bathroom. Their shit smells just like yours. Fuck, she's Adyashanti takes a heavy load. What's he been eating? That ain't light, I'll tell you that. So, really. I have no clue what's going on. But I know I'm really fucking fed up with all that other shit. Really. So I don't know, we had an incredible example being Alcoholics and Addicts. Everyone is in the same boat in self-centeredness, but we're an extreme example. In other words, our painting was painted with a broad stroke, so it's easier to see, yes? And we have an incredible community that supports us in being able to live life in life's terms when the insanity is dominant, and then slowly and surely in that safe space grow out of it, yes? But everyone's addicted to self. The mind is addicted to self in the form as a body. When the body is identified as there's an addiction of self, that was the prior to that, yeah? An addiction. That's the first and foremost addiction. And then that addiction produces the need for other relief, which turns into the other addictions. And then you're dominated by consequences seemingly brought about by the second addiction, which hides the first addiction from you. Yeah? Because you're busy dealing with the consequences of your spending wildly or your sexual activities or your drinking and using, and it seems to occupy you a lot. Yeah? All the while, the first addiction is hidden in clear view. It's hidden. Yeah? Very rarely do we get to, hey, it's identification of self. Very rarely do I hear it. And I've gone to tons of recovery meetings all around the world. I never hear it. I never hear it. Yeah? And yet, we're attempting to deal with an incredible addiction brought about by that addiction. I would see, hey man, if you would get to, let's say, the source, the mother of all the other children called addictions, then maybe this would change that drive that causes the other addictions, that fuels the other addictions. That irritability, restlessness, and discontent did not start when I started drinking and using drugs. It was prior to it. It started when I had introspection. When my mind started to introspect and try to find out or think about who it was, that's when the irritable restlessness and discontentment arose, and that being a persistent sense started driving the engine of seeking. I wanted fucking relief, which is a natural consequence. Yeah, if you're under an incredible amount of stress, you want to escape it. Yeah? It's just that simple, and it's very difficult to persuade your mind not to go there when you're not delivering it any other good substitute. If you just say you'll be punished or this will ruin your life. You don't give a fucking hoot if it ruins your life. You want to get loaded. I did. I could care less about the consequences. I wanted relief. And when I found it, I didn't know I wanted relief, but when I found the relief, which was alcohol, I knew that was the relief. Yeah? I had no idea that I really wanted relief, but when I had that first beer, I knew that was the solution to my wanting relief. Yeah? I was so alcoholic, I didn't even know I wanted relief. I was just walking around, doing whatever everyone told me. Well, I had that beer, and I got relief, and then I realized, oh, that's the fucking thing, yeah? And then AA, thank God, informed me of what it is, this feeling of irritable, restless, discontent, this weird thing that translates to an uncomfortableness in your own skin, and all this being so self-conscious, meaning you're constantly thinking about how other people view you as an object. It's just fucking incredible, yeah? So that set off what? That thing. And then, but the underlying thing was the self thing, because that carried over from the addictions to the recoveries to the spiritual life. Everything was the first one. I used spirituality to try to get out of it. It seemed like I did it, but the head. It used alcohol and drugs to try to get out of it. It used fantasy when it was a kid and science fiction to try to get out of it. It's used sex to try to get out of it. It's used everything he can get his hands on. That's why the solution for me is being here. This is transcendence. This was the last place my head ever wanted to be, and definitely didn't want to stay. It may be able to be here for at least maybe 5-10 minutes, as long as there was a back door, but no way in hell did it want to stay here. No fucking way. And so everything was a platform for that activity. Spirituality, fucking same thing. I wanted to transcend big time. I wanted to get out of here. Cocaine shooting. I figured if I caused my mind to be so taut and kept it taut, like when you're on a long run, that it would snap and I would transcend. I would transcend this fucking crazy system. This helmet that was on me. But it didn't work. It failed. They all failed. Then what finally worked, when I stopped trying to make things unreal, because when I'm trying to make them unreal, they're real. Yeah, that's what blows my mind now. Since I was a kid, feelings and stuff, they were so real to me, they overwhelmed me. So I try to make them unreal. My whole intent was I was going to have a feeling before anyone had brought me a new one. I was going to be loaded as much as I could and have a feeling in place as an armament to any other feelings life could provoke. Because it seemed like I got overwhelmed by those. Yeah? So I'd have this little security. So my whole intent in this head was to make things unreal. Unreal. And that made them as real can be. It's fucking unbelievable. And then, so finally, I started letting them be as real as they wanted to be, and they showed me that they're unreal. And that was incredible. Yeah? So this is my transcendence. This, staying right here, yeah? Right in this room, right in this place. Yeah? This is like the fourth dimension to me. This, yeah? Just being here, so cool. Finally, like a giant exhale and then a huge relief that's lasted for a long time now, just unbelievably. Yeah. Like giving up the ghost, finally, but still being here, Giving up the ghost, but still being here. But totally different, totally different. No, the amount of investment my head had in being me was unbelievable. It was incredible. It had been spending a lot of attention and interest in that little bank account. And to have that be relieved by seeing it's not you, not with another substitute that you are something else, but just seeing that's not you, it brought up like a magnificent active relief. Yeah? And with very little vigilance or any kind of maintenance of it. It maintains itself by the entertaining of it. Yeah? It's entertaining itself, basically, all day. Mitch is getting ready to ask me a question. I was close. We're not going to have a long night today. I'm sort of fried, talking about this all day, last few days. But I like it. It's going to be a total overhaul, if at all possible. It's a message and an invitation. Yes. Not a dissertation. Not a thorough going over anything, except what we're not. I like that. I like describing the activity of being what you're not. Because you can see that. That's there. It's available. It's hanging right here. It's everywhere. You can see it. But in the seeing of that, to have the sense that I'm not that frees you from that thingness, and then the mathematics of zero starts setting in, and then first of all, the processing is incredibly efficient concerning life. It's not producing so much debris and pollution and you don't turn into a storage room anymore. You're very like fluid. Yeah? Or the movement of life as you is very fluid. It's not like a storage unit. It's not like constantly trying to clean up a mess that was made by another mess. And yeah? Really feels like economical and pared down. You travel a lot lighter, really a lot lighter. It's like the serenity prayer. You know what you have the courage to change the things you can, and and the serenity to accept the things you can't, and you have the wisdom to know the difference. There's a clarity not from your exercising or intent or vigilance, but a very relaxed way. Yeah? A very, very relaxed way. The only gatekeeper is you, as your head. It's the only one that says you've got to do something, to know something. And if it sets those rules and there's a compliance, then things will seem to have to go that way. Yeah? So it'll have to take time to produce any sense of value in it. I've been at this for a long time, and it's maturing now. It's deepening. My practice is deepening. What? What's it deepening to? Any questions, No? Any questions from? Something brewing in the action figure. Anytime I do these little ventures, I get all new downloads about how I want to proceed, or how it's going to proceed. Yeah. In other words, the seat assignment changes a little bit each time you go. So I don't know if I just don't feel it when it's like a long, drawn out thing. Yeah. Unless I should maybe travel accompanied with a band, have some music. Or have like a cooking class too, make some food, and all that would be great. Combine it all. like sort of like a road show in a sense. Things. I did this one guy I used to see, and I'm not going to name him, in Australia though. So he would sit there for like 4 or 5 hours and never say much, just stare. And it was a pain in the ass, really, going after a while. I'd be sitting there, what the fuck? And then you could ask questions, but you had to go through 2 of his little people that were serving him, and they were very selective, whoever got to ask the questions. I mean, I never got to ask, ever. I mean, and yet I put it on, it wasn't like who got there first, and, they chose, Yeah. I mean, and you're sitting there for 4 fucking hours, uncomfortable, and all this is supposed to do what? Is it supposed to promote some kind of itch that's going to open you up to the allness and everness? I think we've bought a big fucking. I mean, what people will do to try to get a sense of, spiritualness, Like the guy who wrote, he was one of the writers of the. Let's say this. He could get sued for libel or something.